Sankyo. So we have a technique called Sankyo. The detail of this technique, Sankyo means third technique, it's just a basic term. What I'm going to do is twist his wrist so that all the tendons and ligaments, not just in his wrist, but up his forearm, started to stretch out. And it looks kind of like this. So some ways that you might get into it. So a very basic way of getting into Sankyo is coming in like this, moving around, catching the hand here, sliding down, and then coming up with the Sankyo. So let's first talk about the specifics of the grip and common mistakes. So one, you want to have no space between his hand and yours. So if I am trying to do a Sankyo like this and I have a little gap here, then you know that's not going to be strong. So make sure that that's flat up against there, and the fingers wrap around this meaty part of the, what do you call this part of the hand? The pad?
The part, yeah, it's part of your palm.
Okay, so the outside part of the palm here, you get your fingers in like that, wrapped around. We'll talk about what to do if you think your hands are small. Well, if your hands are smaller, you can actually take the thumb around here and just focus on this part of the hand. Okay, if your fingers are small, you don't want to do this. You want to use the fingers and get to here, and this thumb can be wherever. It doesn't have to be on there, because once you put this hand in the action, it's going to make a difference. So with the regular grip, thumb around the wrist here, fingers around the palm there, then I'm going to move down to his fingers and grab them like this, and I don't have to put a lot of pressure, and then I'm just going to twist. Number one mistake, thinking about the hips. Okay, so you got big circle, big circle. So people go to do the Sankyo, and they do this. Now, if he's not very flexible, if he's got tight wrists, he'll tap. Right? I cheated on that one.
You did.
So I actually did it the right way at the end. But often you see people who, well, either they're not using their hips, or when they do use their hips, it's the same big circle. No, it needs to be a small circle moving into an even smaller circle. And so that's all it takes to get him to submit on this one. 45-degree angle here. I'm sorry, in front of the math teacher. 90-degree angle here. And if it's too high, he can come around, try to get out. Okay, up. If it's too low, he can come around from the front. Okay, so but if it's right here, he has a really hard time moving anywhere. And if I want to take him down, I can go up. I won't go all the way because it's a little bit painful. The other way I can take him down is to come down like this. Okay, do more of that later. So it shouldn't be a big movement. You should be able to make him tap like this. See how much movement there was? So slowly. Now, you're probably thinking he can walk backwards. So he walks backwards. Yeah, okay. But the speed at which he can walk backwards is not this. Right? So he starts to walk. If I'm doing like this and I'm like, I want you to stop doing what you're doing, and he tries to walk out of it, then I just go from being nice to being mean. Because this is one of those techniques that if he stops moving, he's not going to be in pain. But if he starts moving and wiggling and trying to get out of it, all I got to do is lock it on. Boom, it takes a half a second, a literal fraction of a second for me to lock that on, whereas it would take him seconds to walk backwards. So that's the answer to the walking backward thing, is if he starts to walk backwards, you just go boom and pop it. Because this is a control technique. But if I go just like this, what does it become? Destroy your wrist technique. It's not just your wrist, all up here. Understand? So this is me being nice. If he wants to start throwing punches or try to walk backwards or stuff, I can stop being nice. Boom. And not only can I be not nice on the wrist technique here, but look where this right hand is going. Boom. So if I'm going to do a Sankyo, it's probably to get him to stop doing what he's doing and to control him. And if he doesn't, boom. I have lots of things that I can do here, or I can take him down to the ground. Understand? This is the thing we have to understand about some of these, just be real life, like this kind of technique, the Nikyo, these controls where you take him to the ground, pins, submissions. A lot of times, if you're putting someone into a submission on the street, it's because you don't want to hurt them. And I told you guys this before, if it's a dangerous situation, stomp the guy's face and run away, right? We don't do submission. So remember that Sankyo is about control. And if he will not let me get control of him, then I have to take it another way, a harsher way. But that's the way of harmony, right? We only do what we have to do, but we still do what we have to do. Make sense? Okay, so let's go into a really basic entry. We're just going to go over the hand here. I'm going to atemi like this. I'm going to use my shoulder to support. I'm going to come around. My hand is like an L and touches the wrist here. And I can use that to leverage this hand down. And once I have the space, I grab, slide here, squeeze, and then now I need to line this up. So as I'm coming in, I'm lining this up. Okay? And there's always an atemi that I can do if I want to. And look where my feet are. I can sink back, and if he's swinging, I can sink back and kick. I can sink back and strike, shift in, kick, all with the still having some control over the hand. You see, even if I have to, I can shift it into something else. Right. You see, this control is here too. See that? I can take him down to here. All from Sankyo. See that? Work back. So we're going to go from the same side grab. Just a little variety, but I want to emphasize something that I talked about during the practice. Striking here, reaching around, grabbing the hand, atemi, coming in with the shoulder. So even in the first one that we did, cross arm grab, when we move in, we want to get control over the shoulder. Okay? If I come in here and try to do Sankyo and leave that elbow exposed and that shoulder up, there are two things that he can do. One, he could stand up, and the other, he could elbow me in the face. And I don't want either of those things to happen. So we'll just do cross arm. So when I move in, like as in before, I'm going to come right here. I might throw an atemi here, but I'm going to move right in to control the arm with my shoulder. So if he goes to stand up, I still have some time to get the Sankyo on him. This gives us that little bit of time. We have to control the opponent to have enough time and to have enough strength to do the technique to him. That means taking the opponent's balance and getting it to the point where he can't recover his balance. Understand? That gives us the time that we need. If we think we're going to be able to do all these movements without taking his balance, he's just going to react to everything. As long as you have your balance, you can react. If you don't have your balance, what is the first thing you have to do? Get your balance back, then you can react. So your goal is to make sure that whoever's attacking you is focused on getting his balance back and not getting punched in the face by your fist, and not focused on pounding you into the ground or reversing your technique or whatever it is. Confuse the mind, confuse the body, then you have your time. So here,
Same side or opposite?
same side. So we're going to do the next technique, and we'll step to the side and throw an atemi. Just to have good practice, I want to step back in 45. If I step to this side, kind of dangerous because this hand is here. I'm throwing the punch anyway, so I can still deal with it, but I would rather move to this side, and I can actually pull him off the line a little bit. He's throwing that punch here. I have a little bit of protection. So I'm going to reach over to here and trap the hand, or catch the hand, and then I'm going to move up like I'm doing Ikkyo. Right? Except I'm going to come down, and I have my shoulder in. And this is actually one of the things that I say about the Sankyo. What if I want to do an Ikkyo, and I come around, and I'm moving in, my Ikkyo looks nice, and I get him down here, and then he stands up. Whoop! Switch it back to Sankyo. So what I mean is here I go for the Ikkyo, he starts to go down, he feels like he's going down, he's like, nope, I'm going to come up. So what do? I have to change. Because now I don't have an Ikkyo, but I do have a Sankyo. So if I can get used to making that switch, then I can go from Ikkyo to Sankyo. So this becomes a backup when my Ikkyo doesn't work. If he stands up, boom, right? And think about all the big dudes that you can't do Ikkyo on. You can do Sankyo on all of them, right? It's the guys you can't do Sankyo on that you can do Ikkyo on, and the guys you can't do Ikkyo on that you can do Sankyo on. Because if you're big, Ikkyo is very difficult. But normally big people are also not very flexible. So a joint like Sankyo and Ikkyo is generally easier to apply to a big person. And movement like Ikkyo, where you have to throw the whole person, that is harder for a big person, right? And so this is what might happen if you're trying to execute an Ikkyo, and you go down like this, and he doesn't go down, but you're like, okay, well, I can just switch into the Sankyo, and get it like that. We're not going to do it that way. We're just going to do the straight Sankyo, but that's one thing that can happen. So we're going to step back 45, striking. You can do a lower punch if you want, but I like to strike up here because then I come right down to the trap, okay? And then very efficient movement, just like we did before with the Aikido, where there's hardly any time where I'm not connected to him. Actually, I'm connected to him the whole time. Here, oop, look at that thumb. You have that thumb control here. Remember that from the Aikido? Come around, cut him down, and this takes his balance, and I slip. When I do the cut, I slip my hand down and get my arm in control of his arm, and that puts it in this position. Now he's struggling, right? It may take me, of course, if you practice Sankyo 10,000 times, you can put it right on it pretty quickly. But if not, if you fumble a little bit, watch. I'm here, and I take him down. Okay, now I'm getting to the point. I'm trying to keep this controlled so it doesn't get hurt. So now I'm here. I don't have the Sankyo yet. He's going to struggle. And if I can just see, that's the importance of this part of the control. Keeping him from getting up before you can get the Sankyo on him. Got it? So, 1, 2, cut him down, arm in position here, and from here, whatever you have to do. Questions? Okay, try. Let's do, so I like this technique, although you don't see this overhead strike. In Aikido we call it shomanuchi. In the street we call it not realistic. Yeah, there are some attacks that come from the top. If a guy has a stick or a bottle or something, you might see that. Whether that is common in the street or not is irrelevant. We're practicing this technique because it's going to help us to understand the transition and understand the Sankyo a little bit better. So he's going to throw shomanuchi. I'm going to move him like this. Boom. Slowly. So here. First thing. Hand comes up. Right. So what happens if I miss the technique altogether? Right. So this part of it is important. And then this hand comes up and creates the lever here, the fulcrum for the lever. And this is just going to follow the movement down into the Sankyo. So the basic entry here. See that? So it comes in. Look at the control. I have the same control that I'm getting here. And then I just move into the Sankyo from here. On the other side, here. Again. I don't want you to do this. Okay? It's this. What's the difference? There's no stopping. He's coming through. I'm not trying to stop him. I'm just letting him come through. If I can just get out of the way, I can get it on pretty fast movement. If I don't get it, right? I have other things that I can do. Because what happens when he comes through and I do this, boom, he's down. Whether it's Sankyo, Ikkyo, Kodagaishi, Kaitanage, whatever. Kodagaishi even on that one. Slowly. 1, 2. Same side. 2, 3. Questions? Right. Okay, so this one is going to be from a rear attack.
Shoulders?
Shoulders. So the thing with a chokehold is, if he gets it on me all the way, I'm not going to be able to pull him out and do the Sankyo. What do I do here? If the person already has the lock on you and you're struggling, you're not going to be able to get that Sankyo unless you start to throw some stuff. And remember, this is not the ring. I can jab at his eyeballs here, right? I can grab at flesh. I can grab his nose and pull it off. if I can. I can grab his ears and tear them. I can grab his scrotum, and you can literally tear a person's scrotum off of their torso. What we're not going to do is, so this will be a good attempt, and this is going to get him a little bit loose. If he's really strong, I'm going to really do something. And not just striking, but moving here and getting out of, a little bit out of his grip. So I'm probably not going to be able to get out of it just like this if he's really strong, but I can't loosen him up. Oh, sorry.
This is good.
A little too much. See, notice how I just went down and I caught him with my elbow. Here, right? Remember that? If I can get to this point, I can get the Sankyo on him just like this. Now it's better if he comes in and I catch him before he gets the lock on me. And that's because if I have awareness, and as soon as I feel someone putting their arm around me or coming up behind me, and that's how Trey got me, because I was in a crowded bar and I wasn't being aware. I was literally putting quarters on the pool table, not paying attention. That was my fault. He comes up like this and I didn't have a chance to do this. So I did the groin thing. But ideally, if you're going to do the Sankyo, you need to have a little bit of a head start and not be fighting against a full grip. The next thing is look at this wedge here. See my elbow? The way that I'm trying to control this hand is not just by using my hand, but bringing my elbow in close and using my body. So if he's trying to continue that headlock here, squeeze as hard as you can. So he's pulling in, but I got this wedge here, right? So if he squeezes as hard as he can, moves in for the choke, he can't get past that, and I can still slip out like this. So you're not going to be able to just go into a Sankyo and try to get out like this, because he's just going to lock down and choke you up. Okay? But if you go ahead, if you get in there and get a wedge and pull out, right, so that you take some of his balance and take some of his strength. Now I got the Sankyo here. Other side. So other side. So here. Ooh. Sitting down. Don't forget your attempt. So Kokyudosa is an exercise, and people demonstrate it and put it on the internet and do it as though it's an attack that I would defend myself against from this position, and it is not at all a defense. This is what he's going to do to me is not an attack. This is simply an exercise. So we have two things that we do from seated position. We have something called Kokyudosa, and we have something called Suwari-waza. And both of them are developing the same principle, and that is to connect to the ground and move through your arms and your body from the ground rather than pushing from the upper body, right? So what we do is we take out the lower body from that equation, and we're able to focus more on the connection to the ground here rather than going all the way through the legs. It's a little bit easier so to process. So I'm gonna push you. So he's gonna, in the Kokyudosa, he tests me.
Oh, gotcha, you testing.
So in the Kokyudosa, we won't do the testing. All he's going to do is resist. He's not going to let his waist relax and bend backward. Just relax and bend backward. Like this, because that's not the point. And he's going to give some resistance, but he's not really trying his best to hold me, although the better you get at it, the more he can resist. And what I'm going to do is begin, and look how the motion doesn't start here. See, if I start from the shoulders, this is what it looks like. It doesn't start here. You see where it starts? Okay. So first thing we do is we sink and connect to the ground with the lower body, and then move him out of the way. And it's just an exercise so that I can be relaxed and feel that I'm connecting to him. Now, we also have this little pin that we do at the end, and you can do, you guys are talking about pinning here or pinning here, pinning here, pinning here. You can do different positions, but the most important thing is that when he lifts up, doesn't matter where my hands are, it's that I'm sinking my lower body, so that push up as hard as you can, so that he's actually pushing into the ground. So if I don't have a connection and he lifts up, then he can push me off. Let me be a little bit weaker. So here, if I'm not connected, he can push me off. But if I tuck my hips, just like we do in the Tai Chi class, and sink to the ground, that's where the connection is, and I can just sit here with a relaxed hand, and all he's doing is pushing into the body. So this is the important part of the test, is feeling that connection. So then when we do Subhadiwaza, and this is the thing that I've seen on the internet. So he throws Sankyo and I go around like this, and then I pin him, or maybe even something more extra like that, and it gives people the wrong idea as though we're actually practicing for someone to strike at me. But we know this, you guys know this. I'm just saying this for the camera. So what are we doing? Let's just start with a basic grab here. First thing I do. So when I move in on him, I'm not moving from the upper body, okay? Push your hand down and resist. You see? So I don't have a lot of strength here. But if I'm coming from the ground up, getting my legs underneath my upper body, let's go to the other side. So here he's pressing, he's resisting here, and if I'm just pushing with no connection with my upper body, it's going to be me fighting against his pressure. But if I have my lower body behind it, so then we look at how we're doing Subhadiwaza, right? Always moving from the ground up through the hips. Whatever it is that we're doing, even if we're doing something really unpractical like this, it's always about moving from the hips and creating strength from the ground. And it doesn't matter how much resistance he applies here, even here. He's one arm against my arms, press. He can resist a little bit. If I go with my body, it's much more difficult. So what are we practicing when we do Subhadi? Moving, keeping that coccyx tucked and moving from the hip like that.